What up? What up? What up? Don't know if I've done this bit in a while, so figured it was worth it. Polar Seltzer, unofficial sponsor of the show, until they actually send me any money whatsoever, or acknowledge my existence. Sorry, a little tired here today, this morning. Lots going on in the household. Only a few minutes to spare on this Saturday morning, late morning. But I figured check in, see how Fever fans, WNBA fans are doing with the recent news and the recent rough performance again for the Indiana Fever last night against the Connecticut Sun, with the Sun picking up their first win of the season, the Fever falling at the end of the contest, and now falling to 0-2 without Caitlin Clark, plus the injury list piling up. Look, in the aftermath of a game like that, there's always going to be, even myself, the coverage is a little bit more tinged with being reactionary and I wouldn't say emotional in my case, but a little bit more in line with that than analytical at times. And when you look at the way that game transpired, I do want to point out a few bright sides, because all of it's going to be the sun is setting on the Fever season. And look, there is plenty of reason for critique, plenty of reason for angst. Look, the number one thing is Caitlin Clark got hurt, and the Fever were never going to survive a Caitlin Clark injury for any extended period of time. So it doesn't get much more complex than they need her back sooner than later. They were always going to need her back sooner than later, and they're going to need her healthy for the rest of the season. And if that doesn't happen, then the season is over, right? Like, if she's out or shelved for any extended period of time, or doesn't return in timely fashion, the season is over. That's basically all there is to it. And there's no other, aspects to it. There's nothing else that you can say, do, or, any of that stuff. But as far as, wait, does it say the live chat is disabled for this video for some reason? Is anybody having any trouble getting chats in? If so, let me know. Well, I guess you can't, because you can't chat. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. Otherwise, I'll be talking to myself this whole time. Why would it say that? That's why. There we go. Fixed it. All right. Just forgot to click the button that it wasn't for kids. So let me know if the chat is working now. My apologies. Y'all, I did this on the spur of the moment, but I do believe that should have fixed it, and the chat should be working now. I was getting a message about it. Should have looked into it further, but there it is. All right. So when the Fever are going to miss Caitlin Clark, they're going to miss Caitlin Clark, right? Like, and I've said it before, but she is the most valuable player in the league. I've said she's the best player I've seen. I don't need to go any further beyond that. Like, it's kind of blatantly obvious. There's no more need to state such things. Like, at this point, it is evident. It is self-evident for everybody. So you look at what are some of the issues, right? Like, well, one is the players they brought in are on the older side in the front court. So it is not a fast team. It was a team that I think those players can play with Clark, because Clark picks up the pace. And I'm not taking anything back necessarily I said about the offseason. I'm just saying, with her out, you all of a sudden become a very slow team, because she was the reason, her and Kelsey really, the reason that the Fever were fast in the first place. So you have that aspect where the front court is on the older side. And then you have the fact that there, first of all, wasn't a natural backup for Caitlin Clark. And then the backup goes down. But there was no one to replace her playmaking, and you could call that a roster flaw. it's always easier to point out the problems than actually find the solutions. But there was no backup point guard who was capable of playing big minutes. So that's the long and short of it. And then Sophie Cunningham goes down, re-injuring the ankle that was already hurt. And I always get concerned when it's a previous injury re-injured, because generally the second time around it's worse. But it's an ankle, so look, those hurt like sons of a guns. So we'll see how it gets sorted out. We'll see how she recovers from it. You can't really make any broad declarations at the moment until you know how long these players are on the shelf for. Because if both Colson and Cunningham are hurt for an extended period of time or on the shelf, then the Fever have to start looking into hardship contracts and picking up players to man the ship in the meantime. Because I think basically if you don't have 10 players available is when you can go to a hardship contract, which means you have to find a free agent who gets signed, who's only on the team until the players get back, more or less. So I think it's when they're under 10 available players. So for the Fever, that would be now if both Cunningham and Clark are down. I see people saying you need 4 players injured for hardships. Is that because of hardship contracts? WNBA. Let's see. No, the basic hardship exception, it says it looks for teams with 2 players who are out because of injury or illness or other conditions. Both players must be unable to play for at least 3 weeks from the time the team requests an exemption. Whether or not an injured player will be unable to play for the next 3 weeks is determined by a physician. An emergency hardship exemption is allowed at the discretion of the league when a team has fewer than 10 available players on their roster. This can be the result of injury or illness, like the regular hardship exemption, but players who are away from the team for other reasons count as well. If granted the exception, the team can sign as many players to replacement contracts as needed to reach 10 available players. As the original players return to play, the team must terminate those replacement contracts to remain at 10 players until at least 10 non-replacement players are available. So that's the way I read it and interpret it. Regardless. And they only have 11 players on the roster. So it's not like there's much margin for error when it comes to the Fever there. Now, that's, the downside, of course. You don't want Cunningham being out would be a blow regardless of whether Clark was out. Colson being out is a huge blow because Clark is out. So those things are significant. And the Fever could be in position for hardship contracts. Now, we need to know the extent of the injuries for both Clark and Colson in order to get there. So that's like all the obvious stuff and all the obvious downsides and everything like that. Some of the bright sides of the game, I would say, is Aaliyah Boston continues to be tremendous. She has just been terrific to start the season so far. Can't say enough about how well she has played. And if she doesn't get into foul trouble, I'm not so sure the Fever lose that game. That's number one. The 5 fouls that Aaliyah accrued, and after the game, she said she didn't want to get fined. She was 8 of 10 from the floor. She had 8 assists to go with 17 points. AB is the best facilitator on the Fever, not named Caitlin Clark. And they were playing through her early in the game. And then it wasn't until she got into foul trouble that I think they really started to struggle. So that's one positive. Another positive is Lexi Hull has played extraordinarily well, I think, as well to start the season. She looks like she's taken a leap as far as her ability to score a little bit for herself. And she's still bringing all the things she brought last year when it comes to an energy standpoint, a defensive standpoint, all those other things that Lexi Hull became known for. She's still shooting the ball well. And finally, I would say she's shooting the ball very well. The DeWanna Bonner, emergence late in the game. That's now 2 games in a row. Bonner has scored and come alive after being dormant to start the season. That's something you want to see trending the right way. So there are some positives to take away. Then there's the next. Kelsey Mitchell's really struggled to start the season. I don't know, if it's her finger. I don't know if it's her, being forced into a role that she's just not as good or as strong at. But it's not unfair to say she's had a rough go of it. Kelsey Mitchell's had a rough go of it. And when you look at her lack of size defensively, it only amplifies things as a result. So those are some of the broad takeaways. Beyond, people talk about the coaching. If you want to talk about the coaching, I would say, like, tell me what the specific thing you have an issue with is, because I don't know how much of this is the coaching per se in my mind, or from what I've seen thus far. Specifically the coaching. The Sun had one of the more efficient offenses in the league last year, despite playing a relatively slow pace and without, real bona fide shot creators beyond, they had Bonner, who could score, of course, and they had Alyssa Thomas, who's in a way one of the closer players to Caitlin, not as a scorer or a shooter from the outside, obviously, but as a playmaker. She's near the top of the league, just a different sort of engine. But, I don't, if you want to say that the Fever are playing slow, yeah, they're playing slow. They don't have Caitlin Clark. They don't have anybody who's going to push the ball. And if the other team's scoring on you, you can't play fast when the other team is scoring. It's just not possible. And who do you want to be running the ball? Like, who's pushing it? When Colson goes down with an injury, you don't even have a point guard. There's no one who plays that position even on the team at that point or in uniform. So I'm not saying that Stephanie White is beyond being critiqued. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, if we're going to say coach, tell me why. Because everybody always complains about the coach. I said this with Christy Sides last year too. I don't think, I never thought Christy Sides was a great coach, but I also thought people overreacted to her even last year. But because it was always, whenever there's some frustrations, like, who can I blame? The coach is the easy one, because coaches get fired and all that. So there you have it. As far as the rest of the WNBA, there's injuries there too. You have a bunch of injuries adding up, and I've seen a recurring sort of narrative people are constructing about the physicality of the WNBA and how they shouldn't hang their hat on the physicality. And I'm not even pushing back against that. I do think they allow too much shoving and grabbing, and there's not enough consistency in the calls. And specifically, that has been a problem for the Fever and plagued the Fever the way that Clark is defended. But the Fever are not the only team that probably, has gripes with. Breanna Stewart went to the free throw line 19 times the other day. I can't say I watched it to have, closely enough to have a takeaway and go, like, that was wrong, because I can't just look at the numbers and say you shot more free throws than the other team and then say that that's right or wrong, because not all free throws trips are created equal. But it did lead to that SGA joke from Sabrina Ionescu after the game. And of course, when you go back to game 5 of the WNBA finals, it's going to be something people bring up, given the way that the Liberty benefited there. But overall, consistency in the officiating, not allowing a free-flowing game, mucking it up, all that I'm with. As far as, like, the physicality leading to the injuries, that's where I'm not so sure I see the direct correlation. Most basketball injuries, most serious basketball injuries specifically, aren't contact. They aren't, shoving, pushing, elbowing, any of that stuff. You'll get a broken nose or a broken orbital bone or something like that. Or what happened to Paige, who's going to miss a couple games for the Dallas Wings. But if you go back and watch the play that it seemed that the Paige Beckers concussion or concussion protocol happened, which I'm guessing she went into concussion protocol because she had a concussion. I don't know for sure. But the Paige Beckers and Courtney Vandersloot sort of came in together and their heads banged. And it was a little bit of a freak accident. It wasn't part of the physicality aspect. Now, you could argue J.C. Sheldon yesterday, when you got players diving on the floor, that's both a hustle play and an injury risk play. But as far as just like the pushing, shoving, grabbing, all those things that people say, I don't know how much of that is correlated. Unless it's overexertion, unless because you're working so hard, you're tired and overexerted. But I can't say like Nafisa Collier having a knee injury that dates back 2 years, according to Cheryl Reeve, has anything to do with physicality. And I really don't think Clark's quad injury had anything to do with physicality. Clark, I was concerned, to tell you the truth, going in when the Fever were playing 3 games in 5 days. That was my biggest area of concern. Nothing to do with physicality or rough play or anything, but 3 games in 5 days. Because as an NBA fan, my whole life, and especially in recent years, you notice that's when injury risks are at their greatest, when the schedule is condensed. And there's just too much toll on the lower extremities from the explosive play on the court when it comes to cutting, moving, starting, stopping, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, like Alyssa Thomas, that's a calf, right? I think she was out with a calf. So many of the injuries in the WNBA, personally, I don't really see them as a cause and effect with the injuries. Or with the physicality, I'm sorry. I know that both things can be true, where you could want the game, the way it's officiated, cleaned up. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily getting the connection between the two things. Asia Wilson, by the way, last night, big game, 35 points. The Aces beat the Sparks in other WNBA related news. That game was on so late, it's tough to keep up at some junctures. Member chats, super chats are going to go first, as always. But I thought a little Saturday matinee couldn't hurt anybody. Please subscribe to the channel, everything like that. I mean, you can do to help. And like I said, member chats, super chats will go first, starting with Kevin. Weekend with Bergman. With the injuries and L's starting to pile up, I'm getting a little worried. Still too early to panic, but not what you want. Well, yeah, definitely not what you want. But remember, a season ago, the Fever were 1-9, and wound up rebounding to make the playoffs. This year, they're only 2-4. I mean, I think they can start 2-10, and I wouldn't be that concerned about the record itself. You don't want to be. They were 1-8. I'm sorry, and 2-9 last year. I'm looking at it, but 1-8 after May 30th. So the same date. Man, they played a bunch more games early in the season last year, but they were 1-8 after the same date last year. So they had twice as many losses and half as many wins at this time last year. So I again, I wouldn't be signaling the panic alarm or anything like that in regards to the start of the season from that perspective. See if I got any other member chats in here. Again, like I said, member chats, super chats up first. Wish I could take a nap. My kids, though, Raj and Ronnie, are upstairs. Poor Ronnie, she's got a broken wrist. It's a real bummer. I feel so bad for her. I was up early at T-ball, and I can't get my youngest, Rohan. He's got a weird thing about participation in some of these things. And he's big, he's huge. So got to get him on the right side of the sports stuff, because he has a chance to dominate with his physique. Okay. Member chats, super chats go first. I'll get to some of the other chats right now. Matt Rest says it's time to panic. No Olympic break. Well, I don't know if it was necessarily the Olympic break that changed things as much as it created a nice narrative. Because let's look at the Fever last year again. Let me look at them. What were they doing at that point in time in 2024 before the Olympic break? So, okay, the Olympic break happened July 17th. They were 11-15 by the way at time the Olympic break happened. So they started 1-8 and they wound up 11-15, meaning they were 10-7 in that next stretch of games. So the turnaround had happened or started happening before the Olympic break. Pharaoh X says, now you know that the Fever can't win without CC. Well, I mean, like, that's another, aside from Aaliyah Boston being a bright side, one of the other bright sides of this is, it's funny because, the haters try to take it any direction that they can. They would totally have jumped on the idea of the Fever doing well without Caitlin Clark as some sort of gotcha. Like, look at them, told you it wasn't just her. And then now, like, they're not doing well about Caitlin Clark, and it's like, well, the off-season moves are not good. I mean, like, anybody's gonna find anything. But there's no way to see the Fever with Caitlin Clark and see the Fever without Caitlin Clark and not come away knowing who Caitlin Clark is if you didn't already know. I mean, you can pretend, but you have to know what the deal is, because this is a team that was second in net rating going into that game, or not going into the first game Clark missed after the Liberty and the start of the season, the Dream game. They were second in net rating. So it was a team that was statistically graded out as the second best team in the league. They went toe-to-toe with the defending champs, which pretty impressive. Toe-to-toe with the defending champs. They lost to a dream team, not the dream team, but a dream team that is very good, by the way, the Atlanta Dream. So the Dream are currently third to the Lynx and Liberty. And I think the Dream are a top 4 team. I still think Indiana's a top 4 team with Caitlin Clark in the lineup. That's how good she is. But their 2 losses with Caitlin Clark come to 2 top 3 teams by a combined 3 points. So you see that and the difference without her, and come on. Some truths are self-evident. Tulip Play says DB was going berserk in the fourth quarter, leading the comeback, and they still refused to pass the ball in the end. I don't think anybody refuses to pass the ball. I mean, I think they just don't have natural facilitators and playmakers right now. It's a real problem. They don't have somebody breaking down the defense to set up other players, freeing them up. Eric adds, Fever went 1-9 last season. People can slow down with the lottery talk. Where was everybody keeps saying these 4? Where did everybody get this 4 injured players hardship deal? I don't think that has anything to do. Jacob Schwartz says emergency hardships are if you're sub 10 players. Take the Fever to 8, so 2 hardship. Well, I according to what I read, they have to be out 3 weeks. At least 3 weeks each. Clark will not be. So I guess they're not sub 10 unless Clark is out. Now that I think about it. No, they are, because they only have 11 players. I was doing the math on 12. Sorry. So yeah, but that would mean both Cunningham and Colson would have to be out for 3 weeks. or Clark would have to be out for 3 weeks, but they wouldn't have put that request in already. So I don't really know if they're going to be signing hardship players or not. Apparently, Lexi's shooting 71% from three. Is that true? Mm, 57% from three. 57. This is an interesting point from Just a Kid from Brooklyn. Cutting both Jaylen Brown and Bree Hall was a mistake. No way of knowing all three guards would get hurt, but the original plan of having a catch and shoot small forward shooting guard Cunningham as the backup was also a mistake. That is a fair critique on the roster construction. That is definitely a fair critique. You know, the idea of not being prepared for a situation like this at all. I don't know Tulip plays if there's actually that many Fever fans who are like that. I really don't. There's loud people. I feel like sometimes we're just and I'm do my best because I'm guilty of it too. But so much of this is like boosting random stuff on social media, like and then acting as if it's popular opinion, and it happens every single day. I mean, the Fever ratings without Caitlin Clark were very much in line with the story that has been told with the ratings since Caitlin Clark has come into the league, which is that anything with Clark is higher than anything else. Anything with Clark and the Fever is higher than anything else. Anything without Clark is lower than anything with Clark significantly. But everything without Clark is higher than it was before Clark arrived. And the Fever game the other day dropped by 39% in the ratings, but was still the 10th highest ever on NBA TV and certainly higher than the WNBA was doing prior. So there was still some good support for the team as well. TXZ06 is Mitchell's finger injury on her shooting hand worse than we had been told. She's even having trouble controlling the ball when driving. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm not a little concerned about Kelsey's play to start the season. It has been rough. She has not played well at all. She has not played well at all. I mean, especially when you need her to take on a larger role. Sanaya Rivers plays great defense in critical minutes as a rookie for you. Yeah, Connecticut. Rivers has been a very good rookie. Let's talk about the Connecticut team for a second. Give them some credit. That was a team that needed a win, of course. Marina Mabry is a better player than I think she gets credit for, too. Tina Charles is also a WNBA legend for a reason. We celebrated Dewana Bonner getting to the third all-time leading scorer. Well, Tina Charles is the second all-time leading scorer. So shout out to her. She can still put her back to the basket and get buckets. So Tina Charles, hat tip to her. Hat tip to Rivers, the rookie, who's exciting to watch, has a degree of athleticism. And I'd say a hat tip to Marina Mabry, who, for all the talk about Kennedy Carter, people forget that Marina Mabry was on the Sky last year. And that is one of the reasons they fell off. Just got a few more minutes here, guys. Just thought I would give fans a chance to vent, touch base. Member chats, super chats go first. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, relevant links in the description. I saw Kevin write about going Knicks. With Knicks and Pacers is tonight, right? That'll be an interesting game. That'll be an interesting game. Parrish Duggar, miscalculation happened. The league is getting younger, faster, and more skilled, and the Fever got old, seasoned, and less athletic. Good news is Caitlin is great. Fair. I think there's reasonable critique there. I don't know how much less athletic they got because it's not like they let a lot of athleticism go. You could argue maybe they didn't do enough into the athleticism department. I just don't like Katie Lou Samuelson was not athletic. Nalissa Smith, not athletic as far as certainly slow-footed players. I'm not looking at any of the players that were there and are now gone as a big athleticism deficit. You could say they didn't target that enough in the offseason. But again, so much of it is Caitlin being the cog and it being built around her. And whether, you're going to live and die by that. And maybe they weren't well equipped enough to survive without it for the time being, but they were still built around it. So I reserve some of that judgment to see, how they do an extended time with Clark back, because we can talk about all these other factors and all these other things and all these other reasons and everything like that. But ultimately, I think it's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation, the one that requires the fewest assumption, is the one that is generally true. Two faults as Fever just bricking too much. Simple as that. I mean, sometimes it comes down to that too. I really think the reason that Indiana lost the game yesterday is because they, more than anything else, Aaliyah Boston's foul trouble. Where's Raj? Let me find him. You're asking about him. Hold on one second. Let me get to this super sticker first. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. Obviously, member chats, super chats go first. But I'll get Raj and Ronnie. Maybe then brighten up the day for a second. Just bear with me. Hey, Raj. People are asking for you on my screen. You want to come say hi, Ronnie? You want to come say hi? Here they come. Hey, Raj, what's up?
Hi.
Basketball shootout champ shirt. Show him. Yeah. So Raj likes to do this thing where he pretends like he doesn't like Caitlin Clark and stuff because he knows I talk about her so much. But then I go to his YouTube channel the other day. What's your YouTube channel?
Raj Talk.
Speak into the microphone.
Raj Talk.
No, don't scream. Talk, present. Raj Talk.
Raj Talk.
And it's Raj-Talk, right? Yeah. And I go there and it says Caitlin Clark is the greatest women's basketball player of all time with a highlight montage. Is there anything you would like to say to the people? Somebody asked, literally asked about you, dude. This person who I still don't know who they are yet. My biggest fan, unless it's you in disguise. Or is this you, by the way? Raj, this isn't you either, is it? The
NBA kid?
Yeah, NBA kid.
No.
Then how did you know what NBA kid was?
I don't know. I saw his YouTube channel.
Okay.
And he said, I like Robin Wambach on his YouTube channel.
Okay. Ronnie, come here. You got butters?
Eat.
You eat. Say hi, Ronnie.
Hi.
You want to show everybody your arm?
No.
Or you don't want to show them? Show them your arm. Poor Ronnie has a broken wrist.
Yeah, somebody broke it on
Yeah.
purpose to be funny.
Well, sort of, yes. We don't need to do all this publicly, Raj. There was an accident because somebody pushed something in front of Ronnie while she was on her scooter, and she fell down. Yeah. Show your painting, Ronnie. Oh, that's from a while back too. Remember when we went to the art store together? Come into the frame. Talk about your painting. What did you paint there?
This is my first ever painting.
So speak, present. Talk like you're confident. Okay. This is Little Miss New Jersey, by the way. So go ahead.
This is the painting I first painted when I started painting on canvases, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about, or you have a message?
I'm gonna show them something.
Okay. So I am gonna wrap after this little session with the children, y'all. So any other questions, get them in now. Like I said, super chats, member chats.
Yeah, this one,
Go first.
It's like a hummingbird. I think it was my second ever. I tried to make a flower, but I don't think it turned out well.
Yeah, and you did those 2 years ago.
And then this one is I think this was my last painting, and then I didn't have time to do anymore. And then it's the sunset.
Yeah, sunset. The Connecticut sun beat the fever. You want to go to Ellie's birthday party tomorrow? Maybe we do that.
Does she do the gritty?
Does Ellie do the gritty? I don't know.
And beating people up
Oh.
Does she do RKO?
I don't know. Don't argue. You have a canvas? Why don't you work on a painting right now? Okay. Go help Ronnie work on her painting.
Yeet.
All right. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I just put the collage up there. Thank you, Philip. Yeah, that's Raj and Ronnie. Rohan's out at a birthday party right now. But I wanted to just, touch base, see how everybody was doing, give you a few quick thoughts. Last 90 seconds or so, if you got anything you really want answer or getting in here. And if not, I'm going to go be a dad. It is, when you do what I do, you kind of lose track of the days of the week sometimes, but it is a Saturday. They're off from school. There ain't that much happening. So there you have it. Until the next time. Oh, any word on Sophie, says Cindy. I have not heard anything. There were no updates from Stephanie White last night. She said Sophie wasn't in the locker room. I'm concerned she's going to miss an extended period of time personally, but there is no updates. Rohan reviews. I am your son, Rob. How many different accounts are there? I don't know if I'm being spammed or not. Sky or Wings tonight. I mean, it's kind of a coin toss. I know Paige is out. I feel like I kind of maybe Chicago again, but I really think that game can go either way. They're not. Diana Noble says the injury report lists both Colson and Cunningham as out until June 3rd. Is that a real thing? I don't think. Well, June 3rd is their next game, is it not? That might be why. Yeah, they don't play again until June 3rd, Diana. So that would be the reason. I wouldn't take that as a I appreciate the information, but I wouldn't take that as too much significance. Parrish, what makes Caitlin special is logo threes and the threat. Stephanie wants to curtail that. Her deep shooting and passing is what creates great O for others. I guess I don't know if she wants to curtail that or not, because everything she said in the offseason didn't seem like that's what she wanted to curtail. I remember when she was asked about the three that Clark took in the Brazil game and said you wouldn't tell Steph Curry not to shoot that stuff. So I don't know if that's true. I think she wants other players involved, and she doesn't want to just run the offense through one player all the time. I do think that's true, but I don't necessarily think she wants to dial that stuff back. Ronnie's TV is now here. How many of you guys just created accounts to mess with me in the last minute or two? Maybe that is Ronnie's actual channel, though. I didn't know if Ronnie had a channel. Maybe all my kids have channels. Perhaps that is the case. All right, guys. Last any member chats or super chats, I'll give you a chance. The rest of y'all, I'm gonna say goodbye. but member chats, super chats, you got a shot here for 90 seconds. I've had well, actually, I'll answer this question because I've seen it a couple times. MP says, how do you think Stephanie White is doing? I think it's tough to judge her because her best player has been out, and the roster construction issues are not her fault. And I think she already did better than the predecessor by calling out the refs. I mean, I think that's the most significant thing Stephanie White has done so far this season. We'll see if it pays dividends for the Fever as the season progresses. But until then, y'all, eat.